So Clark Kent has to be dumber than a box of rocks. I mean, I get it, right? He is kind and loyal and the fabled man of steel, but are we really supposed to believe that a single pair of glasses has stopped the entire city of Metropolis, right? A whole city from realizing that this enterprising young reporter is actually Superman? I mean, come on, DC, we require logical storytelling. Okay, obviously, I have very strong feelings about heroes in disguise and alter egos, but it has less to do with the comics than it does with the people sitting in this room. See, by day, you are professors and professionals, you are students and small business owners, but I know your secret identities. You are also founders and creators, and most importantly, you're what make our community an amazing place to live. Your work is what led the American Institute for Economic Research to list Bloomington as one of the most desirable employment destinations in all of 2016. My name is Hailey Thomas. I am a proud resident, but I'm also a freelance assistant and project manager, which means my whole job is to help heroes in disguise figure out what important work needs to be done and get to doing it. I want you to know two things. First of all, I see you. I see the work that you want to be doing. I see you wanting to make meaningful relationships, work on these meaningful projects, but I also see how heavy and how difficult all of the pieces that are required in this work can be. And I want you to know that you're not alone. Just like Batman has Alfred as his trusty advisor to help him get back on track when fighting the villains of Gotham seems way too overwhelming, I want you to trust me to be the advisor, the person that helps you identify and conquer the villains in your path. So today, I want to talk about the single greatest neutralizer of heroes on their quest to complete their missions. Unfortunately, this villain is quite sinister. It's so pervasive and well-known that we often forget that it's there in the first place. It's called burnout. And you might have heard of his henchmen: procrastination, distraction, weariness, fatigue. They are a mean bunch, and they keep us stuck like 70% of the time. It's the stuff that's missed deadlines, misguided communication, failing to plan. It's a villain hiding in plain sight. The Mayo Clinic defines burnout as work-related stress leading to physical or emotional exhaustion, and it usually includes a loss of personal identity and a reduced sense of accomplishment for the stuff that you do actually complete. In 2018, Gallup ran a poll, and 57% of Americans reported feeling burnt out at work, And that number soars way past that of previous generations. And it's more than just feeling like a little stressed at your desk. Burnout actually puts your physical health at risk, and it makes individuals more prone to being physically violent. I'm going to repeat that in case you didn't catch it. Chronic burnout leads individuals to be more prone to being physically violent. Now, it's not even like burnout is helping us be better at work, because it actually increases absenteeism, and it increases on-the-job accidents. And to make matters way worse, psychologists have found that individuals with a poor work-life balance actually bring that stress home and infect their loved ones. It is literally contagious. So how did burnout become the Joker to our Batman? Heath Ledger's Joker, not Jared Leto's, obviously. There are two identifiable causes. One is a distinct lack of guidance or information, and the second is an overwhelming amount of tasks. This first piece, this lack of guidance or information, is evident in how so many of us go through the motions of our day without any real connection to why we're doing it in the first place. In 2018, CNBC reported that 40% of American employees don't know what's expected of them at work. 40% don't know the full scope of what their role is or what their employer actually wants from them. And this ambiguous demands are directly correlated to disengagement and disinterest. And this goes beyond the workplace as well. The topic of low voter turnout has been a national discussion for like the last decade here. In the last presidential election, only 57% of eligible Americans cast a ballot, barely more than half. Political scientist William Galston explained it like this in 2001. Political participation is directly correlated to civic engagement. Or civic education, So people that don't feel adequately informed are likely just to stop participating altogether. So in addition to this lack of guidance, we've got the overwhelming amount of tasks that Americans are trying to take on. When things like overwork and long hours and the hashtag hustle are equated with hard work and success and are glorified, job duties correspondingly creep out of control. That Gallup poll I mentioned earlier has a phrase that refers to this feeling of being overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that you have been assigned or that you've raised your hand and agreed to, which is me a lot of the time, as mental quicksand. So when the vast majority of your day, when all of your energy is just taken up in like getting through your task list, things like being a present spouse or parent or being civically engaged or working on side projects are about as impossible as taking a walk on the sun. So between this lack of guidance or lack of information and the overwhelming amount of tasks on our list, it's probably appropriate to ask why more of us aren't feeling burned out, but I digress. We have you, our well-meaning heroes, who are under attack by this insidious villain, burnout, whose evil effects include things like a drop in workplace productivity, loss of physical health, destruction of personal relationships, and reduced involvement in our communities. Admittedly, the situation seems pretty dire, but just like in every great superhero tale, the forces of good always rally and triumph in the third act. So as the good guys here, what are we supposed to do? I've got a 3-step process for knocking out this bad guy. First, you have to reconnect with your mission. Second, you need to assemble your heroic team. And third, you might need to power up your skill level. So this first piece, reconnecting with your mission, is all about reflection. And the best place to start there is to identify what means success for you. Is it achieving all of your career ambitions? Is it leaving a particular legacy on this community? Is it maximizing the amount of time you spend with your family and friends? Your version of success is not going to look like anyone else's in here, and that's absolutely okay. Consider this me giving you permission to not worry about whether or not your definition of success fits whatever you think that it should. So once you've gotten that target, the next piece is to identify the skills and kind of gap that only you can fill. You have to be really honest with yourself at this point, because there's probably quite a few things that you don't have to do, that to get to the mission you don't necessarily need, and you have to be comfortable with setting those things aside. It might be helpful to ask questions like, who is impacted by this mission? Who or what do I actually need for this mission to get complete? And what does completion look like? How do you know when you're done? Okay? Through this reflection, you get re-energized and refocused on your mission. So the next step is to assemble your heroic team, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Support is not optional. It is not an afterthought. For most of us, the people and tools that we surround ourselves with are the only reason we survive in the first place. I mean, how far does Black Panther get without his brilliant sister in her lab? How does Tony Stark save the world and also run Stark Industries without Pepper Potts? I mean, who is Captain America without a shield, right? Additionally, surrounding yourselves with the right people and tools allow you to reframe your strengths and weaknesses. Things that you thought were limitations might actually be incredibly powerful with the right sort of frame around it. I like to think about Cyclops from X-Men. If you don't know who he is, he shoots lasers out of his eyes. And before he met Professor X, and before he got his visor, he was walking through the world with his eyes shut. Opening your eyes to the tools and the people that are around you are going to launch you just that much further into completing your mission. Now, this third step, powering up your skill level, is all about asking for help and understanding what else you need. There is no shame in asking or raising your hand and saying, I need help, or I'm still learning. In fact, it's a sign of leadership when you're able to do so. Word of caution here, don't create a laundry list of all the things that you need to fix or do, because that's what got us to burnout in the first place, right? Identify the few things and start working slowly towards improving your skills to help you use those tools and learn from those amazing people you just surrounded yourself with. So that, my friends, is my 3-step approach to defeating burnout and completing your mission. And the good thing is that once you've taken this in, this is a process that you can teach other heroes how to use. And that's exactly how I learned it. When we moved back to town from living in St. Louis for 4 years, our goal was incredibly simple. See, my husband and I both had to quit our jobs to move back. So the first mission was just pay the bills. So that was kind of a challenge, but it wasn't too scary because the role I had just left meant that I was working a lot of hours and saw my infant son at that point for like 1 hour a day. So I was ready to create something that was gonna keep me from feeling burned out, that was gonna let me be an accomplished professional and an available mom and a generous friend. And so through reflection, asking myself those questions, how do I get to that mission? How do I complete that mission? I was able to come up with my business, BrainSpace Optimized. And like I said before, my whole job now lets me use my planning skills and my ability to ask all sorts of questions to help creative entrepreneurs and leaders make the space and then do the work that they need to do in that space. So after I did all that reflection, I pretty much bothered anyone and everyone about being a freelancer, working for yourself, running your own business, which sometimes felt very awkward and intrusive. But at the end of every one of those conversations, the person I was talking to reflected to me how glad they were that they were able to share some of their knowledge. Just like Steve Rogers was able to help Bucky Barnes kind of take up the mantle of Captain America after he did, heroes are always willing to pass on their knowledge if it means that next generation is going to be able to go that much further. So even with all these experts in my corner, I still had to learn a bunch of tools and tactics to learn how to run a business and to do my job. And I kind of equate that to like a montage in a Rocky movie, right? Every time I would go back and learn a skill, I did a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And that's a process that continues today. I don't want it to end because there's still more to learn. And I fully believe that any hero who is not ready to figure out what it is their community needs or the mission needs and try to figure out how they can provide it, it's probably a good time to hang up the cape. So the last thing I want to leave you guys with is this idea. Heroes aren't born, they're made every day in the choices that they make and the actions that they take. By deciding to opt out of overwork and burnout and complete the missions that you are on, you become a hero in more ways than one. To me, our community exemplifies the optimism reflected in the golden age of comics. We are founders and leaders, okay? We are fighters for justice and fillers of gaps. When we see something we want our community to have that we don't currently have, we make it, we just build it. We hold our values close and we act on them. And it makes me very proud to be a part of this community. And while I don't have a bat signal, I do want to call all of you into action. Instead of succumbing to burnout and telling yourself there was never really much at stake anyway, it's fine, the world doesn't need me. What might our future look like if you rose up today and took up your spot as a hero? Thanks, guys.